Hello BookTube, it's Lee Cooper here, and today I'm bringing you a review of Tomorrow's Kin by Nancy Kress. I received this book from Netgalley as an ARC in exchange for an honest review. All of the opinions expressed are 100% my own and 100% honest. And I'm not being paid, this is not sponsored, etc. You know the drill. So, Tomorrow's Kin is the first in a new science fiction trilogy by, like I said, Nancy Kress. It came out on July 11th, I believe. It's being published by Tor. I will leave a link to the Goodreads page so you can check it out if you're interested in purchasing it. It is billed as a alien first contact story. So I'm going to read a snippet of the synopsis given so you can get an idea of how it's being billed. Aliens have arrived. They've landed their embassy ship on a platform in New York Harbor and will only speak with the United Nations. One day, Dr. Marion Jenner, an obscure scientist working with the human genome, receives an invitation that she cannot refuse. The Secret Service arrives at her college to escort her to New York, for she has been invited, along with the Secretary General of the UN and a few other ambassadors, to visit the alien embassy. The truth is about to be revealed. Earth's most elite scientists have 10 months to prevent a disaster, and not everyone is willing to wait. I was really hopeful and interested in this book. I was really interested in this book. You know, I've been on kind of a sci-fi reading kick, and very recently I watched Arrival and loved it. So I was thinking, oh, this is gonna be kind of in the same vein. Perfect. In the end, I gave this book 3 stars. So it was okay, but it wasn't great. It was easier to read than a few things I have read recently that were just really slow to read. Like, it was a pretty quick read, relatively speaking, for how much I was enjoying it, which is why it gets a 3-star, not a 2-star. One thing about this book is that it's not about first contact, and it's not about meeting the aliens or learning about the aliens. Like I said, I watched Arrival very shortly before I watched this, and Arrival is very much about the arrival of these aliens who are so alien and like learning to communicate with them, right? And this book is not about that. This book is, you know, I saw someone describe it as more of like a family drama. And I mean, I think to some extent that's true, but I think that's not the intention. I think it is intended to be a hard science fiction novel with a lot of like biology, biochemistry. However, it suffers from a few issues. The book is broken up into 3 parts, and the entire novel spans approximately 10 years of time. But it's a really short novel. I mean, my edition, my digital edition, was only 260 pages. I think the print edition is barely 300 pages. It's really short for 10 years of time. At least that's how it felt to me. There were very regular time jumps between chapters, and that feeds into what became a very monotonous flow of like the story itself. It was very monotonous just because it was like so regular. And another thing that tended to happen is that a lot of the things that I think would have been really interesting tended to occur during one of those time jumps. So we didn't see it, we were just told about it retrospectively. And that happened repeatedly throughout the book. It really suffered from this habit of telling instead of showing. I'm not saying you can never tell, you always have to show. I'm not one of those proponents. You have to be judicious about what you tell instead of show. But there's no exceptional beauty in it. And so when you have just repeated instances of being told stuff that have happened off screen, you're just kind of left going, what is the point? Like, why am I reading this if everything interesting is pretty much happening off screen? So one of those things that happens like almost entirely off screen is all of the science. Like, pretty much none of the science occurs on screen, which for something that's billed as a hard science fiction novel, from the description, something that's, you know, a race against time to discover, you know, some sort of scientific breakthrough, that's rather disappointing. When it comes to characters, I'm a little bit torn. I think a few of the characters were quite good. The protagonist is not terrible. I think her daughter was an interesting character. Her daughter Elizabeth was really interesting. She was a very like relevant character. She's someone I think would have voted for Trump for no other reason than she would have supported building the wall. And so she very much rang as an authentic character. Noah didn't like, could have done without his point of view, to be honest, because it's this thread that everything interesting that happens to him, all of his interesting choices he makes, again, occur completely off screen. We just keep leaping ahead, and like radical things have happened to him, or he's made these huge life choices, but they've all occurred during a time jump. So we're just seeing not even necessarily the fallout, because there's no fallout. There's no difficulty or tension or anything. And then, you know, his point of view disappears. There are 2 diverse characters in this entire book, and it's very obvious that they're diverse to check the diversity box. Neither of them is particularly well developed. Both of them are complete stereotypes. One of them's a gay man, one of them's a black woman. Both of them are just complete stereotypes. And I'm going to put a spoiler warning right here, and I'll hold my hands up here and I'll put spoiler down here, and when that goes away you can know that the spoiler is over, but I have to mention this. So, spoiler. Not only are they complete caricature stereotypes, but both of them die. To evoke some emotional response from the reader, I suppose, but neither of them is given much character development. Like, the gay guy has one catchphrase, and the black woman has frizzy hair. And that's about as character developed as they get. And so they both die to make a negligible emotional impact on the reader. I wasn't really sad. But his death, again, happened off screen, so for a portion of it, I was kind of thinking maybe it didn't really happen, because I didn't see it happen. But irregardless, so she fridges the black woman, and she kills her gay. I was not impressed by that. And I know from reading Goodreads, I'm not the only one who wasn't impressed by that. Okay, spoiler over. The characters are a mixed bag. Plot. If you're here for the science, if you're here for clever characters, you're going to be disappointed. Most of the big plot elements happen, like the big scientific plot elements all happen off screen, or other people are doing them. The main character's not involved. I would say the entire third part is incredibly predictable and cliched. There's no clever realizations or discoveries. Another thing I really hate is kind of her lazy use of a child character to further the plot. Again, in an extremely predictable way. I think I'm gonna have to do another spoiler here. So, spoiler, okay? When I put my hands down, you can come back. A huge pet peeve for me is when you use a child as a device to basically fuck everything up. So you have, for instance, a biohazard attached to an animal, okay? The lazy thing you know is going to happen is, oh, the kid is going to release the biohazard animal. It's going to get out and it's going to infect everyone. Oh, and look, it happened. And it's just, I hate it. And it's so overused. And personally, I don't know who these children are who just open animal cages. It makes sense when, no, those aren't animals, those are demons. I was going to say Lyra does it in the Golden Compass, but those aren't animals. So it's not the same thing. But, I mean, you know, because, like, I have nieces and nephews. I have friends with kids. I know a fair few children. I interact with them on a fairly regular basis. None of them would just randomly release animals. Would they stick their fingers through cage bars, try to pet them? Oh, yeah, sure. Get themselves infected? Sure. But, like, wholesale, just, like, go into a lab and release a bunch of animals? No. It doesn't work for me. And it's an extremely just tropey use of a child. Similarly, people or authors or film producers have a habit of doing it with mentally ill characters, just as an easy way to complicate their plot. And it's just, it irritates me, to be perfectly honest. And it happened in this book. Like, I knew it was coming. Spoiler over. Well, there's a couple little plot holes. I'm not going to go into them because, whatever. It's, like, inconsequential. There is, however, this huge thing in part 3 where you're like, why is this really rich person helping you, Marianne? Like, and she doesn't even bat an eye that he's just like paying for everything, paying to do all this stuff for her. And she like writes articles for him on a website. Like, what? And obviously it's because he has like ulterior motives that are really obvious, but the protagonist doesn't figure it out until the very end. Like, Marianne really does have as much information as we have. She has all the pieces, but she doesn't figure it out for like 100 pages. And that's always a dangerous position to put your character in because it makes them look stupid, to be honest. I like the end. I did like the way she, you know, kind of armed herself and took some action. that was good. I appreciate that, especially since she's an older female character. That's great. Another thing that really bugged me was the aliens. And it's difficult to talk about this again without a spoiler warning. But the aliens basically make a series of decisions where and their reasoning behind these decisions are, we know humanity is kind of full of a bunch of assholes and you won't help people unless it benefits you. And like, you make all these wars and you fight amongst yourselves, and that's just like a really dangerous situation. So that's why we kind of had to lie to you. Okay, they're not wrong. But then they give humanity a gift. This is the kind of gift that has no relevance to why they came to Earth. It's a really good way to bring humanity to them, to blow them out of the sky. So it just seems dumb after they made this whole point of saying we had to lie to you because you're really shitty people. So why are you arming? And I use that term kind of loosely. Why are you arming us to strike back at you just because we wanted to? It really just kind of didn't work for me. It really felt like a plot device. The author wants to go to the stars. The author wants the series to take a certain direction, and so she had to supply this specific gift to humanity. Otherwise, probably the rest of her plot falls apart. But in the context of the book, it just didn't really feel like it fit. Who would I recommend this book to? Because here's the thing. I know Sylvia was reading this book almost at the same exact time I was reading it, because we talked about it a little bit on Twitter, and I know she loved it. And I'm really interested to see her review and to see why she loved it. Obviously, some people are going to like this. I struggle to know who to recommend it to because it was just okay. And I think if you go into it wanting something like Arrival, you're going to be horribly disappointed because it just doesn't have any of those really great, thoughtful, interesting, philosophical, scientific, emotional nuances that Arrival has. It almost approaches it on an emotional, like, character interaction level with the kids, but I think the strongest kid character who makes the most sense is Elizabeth, and she has the least screen time. There's a couple of interesting ideas. I think there's also a couple places where the author contradicts herself. If you want a really simple, straightforward, low stress, not science heavy book, or you just really want to read something with a bit of a first contact element, you could try it out. It's not the worst thing I've read recently. I gave this 3 stars. It's okay. I'm sure Tor is never going to approve me to read an arc again. Whoops. But those are my honest thoughts. So if you've read this book, let me know what you think down below, or if you're planning on picking it up, and see you guys in my next video. Bye.